You have to hide it in your mouth. So we're going to start today's class with a little bhajan that is to Prabhupada Nityananda. Let's read the translation first. So, we can say this all in the Lord Nityananda is never angry, for he is the personification of supreme transcendental bliss, devoid of any concept of false ego. His eye wanders about the town, going from door to door in the residences of the most fallen and wretched souls. He freely distributes the gift of the Harinam Maha Mantra. He exclaims to whomever he sees while holding a straw between his teeth, "Please purchase me by worshipping Gaura Hari." Thus, Nityananda Prabhu rolls out on the ground, appearing like a golden mountain tumbling in the dust. Lochana Das Thakur says, whoever has not experienced the awakening of affection for such an avatar as this, that simple person simply comes and goes uselessly in the cycle of repeated birth and death.
Aproda
Nityananda Ram. What's his name? You guys know what Nityananda is? Ram. Ram. Who's Ram? Balaram. Balaram. Alright, so that's one reason why we say Nityananda Ram, because Nityananda is known as Ram. And then there's another reason why we say Nityananda Ram.
Because he's the reservoir of all pleasure.
Yeah, because he's the reservoir of all pleasure, and he's always experiencing that transcendental pleasure. That's why he's named. That is named after that. Nitya means eternal, and Ananda means bliss. So his name means eternal bliss, and Nityananda Ram is like just emphasizing that all the more. So he's Lord Balaram, and he's experiencing this unending transcendental bliss, all transcendental pleasure, all the time. And for that reason, he's Akroda. Because Akroda means you don't get angry. So we have like the Leonardos, Kama, Kroda, Mada, Moha, Loba, like that. Lust, anger, greed, envy, madness, illusion. So Lord Nityananda doesn't have any of these. Because it's like if you're very happy, let's say something really wonderful just happened in your life, and then somebody happens to make some nasty little comment or insults you or says something negative about the world or something. It doesn't get you down, you're not bothered by it, you don't get angry. Even if they insult you directly, you're not going to get angry because your happiness is so vast, you're just so happy that it's just like, oh whatever, you just go on with your happiness. So Lord Nityananda is Paramananda, not just Ananda, but Parama Ananda. Parama means the supreme, because his Ananda is Premananda. It's Krishna Premananda, Gora Premananda, like we say, Gora Premanandi.
Hari Hari Bol.
So because he has a love for Krishna, love for Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna, that's the Paramananda. And because of that, then he's always Akroda. No matter what anyone does to him, he doesn't get angry. We're going to see an example of that later on. So, yeah, and then another thing here is Abhimana Shunya. Abhimana means the ego, and Shunya means zero. He has zero false ego. He has no sense of like, I should be honored, I should be worshipped, I should be served. He's fully identifying with the real ego that I am the servant. I'm the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I'm the servant of Lord Chaitanya. I'm the servant of his servant. That's his mood. And so he goes from village to village, wandering around like that, going door to door, dvare, dvare, giya, singing. And he's singing what? Hari Nam Maha Mantra. He's singing the holy names and giving that to the people. So like that, Lord Nityananda is going on with his affairs and approaching the most fallen people, patita, and giving them life. Giving life to the fallen people who are just like totally out of it. And because he's the Abhimana Shunya, free from false ego, then he's Trina, he's humble. He's so humble that Trina means grass, like we say Trina api sunichina, humble as a blade of grass. So in order to actually not just have that characteristic, but to show it that I'm approaching you with humility, then he takes a blade of grass between his teeth, Dante. It's the same thing as dental. So Dante, Trina, Dadi. Dadi means hold it. He holds, he carries, like Yuri Dadi, holds it up. So he holds a grass straw between his teeth, and he goes to people door to door, and he tells them, Bolo Gora Hari. He says, chant Gora Hari, chant Gauranga, chant Hare Krishna, chant the names of the Lord. And if you do so, then Amare Hinaya Allah, then you'll become very dear to me. You'll become my life. I'll become your servant.
Yeah, Kenya means buy. So he's saying buy me by saying Gaur Hari. Like I'll be yours, so you can just buy me.
He'll purchase me. Yeah, he'll purchase me. I'll sell myself to you.
Yeah.
I'll do anything for you. Yeah. So like that. And then he becomes so ecstatic in this mood of like preaching and serving Lord Chaitanya that he rolls on the ground. It says here the next thing. Samara Parvati. Parvati means a hill, and he's like a golden hill because he's so effulgent. And he's just rolling in ecstasy. Dula means in the dust. He's rolling in the dust. And And so he's so merciful and so wonderful and so accommodating and accepting, and just he'll do anything to make us devotees. You know, that if we neglect Lord Nityananda, then it's like Lochan Das Thakur is saying, basically there's no hope. You know, like if you, it's like, you know, if you can't take the mercy of Lord Nityananda, then it's like, what can we do for you? We've tried everything. Lord Nityananda has tried everything to get you to be a devotee. And if you're just like, sorry, no thanks, then it's like, okay, we did what we could. That's basically what he's saying. You know, you just have to take birth again. And hopefully better luck next time. So yeah, Lord Nityananda is really someone that we can take shelter, and because today's his appearance day, it's a special day. So the mercy of Lord Nityananda is always there. It's always readily accessible. But especially on his appearance day, it's a very good day for remembering him, and he's like really even extends himself even more, and his mercy becomes even more accentuated. So, yeah. So we're going to speak a little bit about Lord Nityananda and the glories of Lord Nityananda, who he is. We've already talked about how he's Balaram, but we'll get into more detail of that. And we'll talk about his mood, how his mood, although he is Balaram, but his mood is different, and how his mood is different from Lord Chaitanya's mood in some ways, and how we should try to emulate his mood. And we'll also talk about some of his pastimes and some amazing things that he does. Okay, so we'll start off with reading some verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is chapter 5 of the Adi Lila, which is called The Glories of Nityananda Ram. And so we'll read texts 1 to 11, and we'll start with the invocation, which is actually text 2 of this part that we're going to read. So I'll say Mohit. You can't hear? I don't know what's wrong with this thing.
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. It doesn't stay there, I have to hold it. So this is an invocation that we generally say before reciting the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I'll say in your repeat. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So go to text 1.
Whoa.
So we can read these all in unison. Next one.
Let me offer my
obeisances to Lord Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
His opulence is wonderful and unlimited.
By his will, even a fool can understand his identity. So we just chant it. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have described the glory of Sri Krishna Chaitanya in 6 verses. Now in 5 verses I shall describe the glory of Lord Nityananda. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balaram is his second body. These two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balaram is the first bodily extension of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadvip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balaram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Krishna, the Vishnus, the land and the Garden ocean, and ocean of milk are his plenary portions, and portions of his plenary portions. Lord Balaram is the original Sankarshan.
He is unified other forms to serve Lord Krishna. He himself helps the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation, and in the form of Lord Shesha, he serves Krishna in various ways. In all the forms he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balaram is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Sundar.
Okay, so we'll go back to text 10 and please look for 4. Okay. Somebody let 3.
According to the expert opinion of Balaram as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also the original Sankarshan. Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna. Expands himself in 5 forms: Maha, Sankarshan, Karana, Bhadshayi, Garbhodakshayi, Kshirodakshayi, and Shesha. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these five forms, Lord Balaram assists Lord Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestations, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. Shesha is called Ananta, or unlimited, because he assists the personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. Sri Balaram is the servitor of Godhead who serves Lord Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same servitor Godhead, Balaram, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association.
Jai. Thank you. Om Jnana
Gurave Namah.
So, yeah, we're hearing here a little bit about how Lord Nityananda is Balaram, and that Balaram, and Prabhupada explains here in the purport, like a little more what that means. Because Krishna expands himself, and he expands himself initially in 2 different ways. So, 2 different categories of expansions. So one category of expansion is called Prabhav Prakash, and the other type is called Vaibhav Prakash. So Prabhav Prakash are expansions which look just like Krishna and act just like Krishna. So that's like, when Krishna expands himself in the Rasa dance to become so many Krishnas, or when Krishna expands himself in Dwarka to marry, 16,108 queens, and they're all Krishna. They look like Krishna, they act like Krishna, they're Krishna. And then Vaibhav Prakash expansions, they look differently from Krishna. So the first one of those is Lord Balaram. So he is Krishna, he's got all the potencies of Krishna, he's fully non-different from Krishna, but he looks different from Krishna. He's a different color, he wears different stuff, and he has a different mood than Krishna. So Krishna, one thing about the mood difference is that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He is the person that everybody serves for his pleasure, for his enjoyment. Whereas Balaram, although he's the supreme personality of Godhead, he's in the mood of the servant of the Lord. Prabhupada sometimes says he's the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. In Sanskrit, it's Krishna is the Savior Bhagavan, the Lord, Supreme Lord, who is served, and Balaram is the Sevaka Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who serves the Lord. So it's very interesting, and that's another reason why Balaram and Lord Nityananda is so ecstatic, because not only is he the Lord, and he has all the bliss of being the Lord, but he also gets all the bliss of the devotee who serves the Lord. And as Krishna doesn't get that, he has to come as Lord Chaitanya in order to experience the bliss of serving himself. Whereas Balaram gets that all the time. So Balaram is always very jolly and joyful. And Nityananda, and then Lord Nityananda becomes even more joyful. So Balaram, alright, Balaram served Krishna. So we saw a little bit in the purport that some of the services that he does is that he expands himself further to fulfill the different, all the different functions of creation. So first of all, as Balaram himself, he serves Krishna in his pastimes in Vrindavan. He's the older brother, he takes part in all the games and episodes that we read about in the Krishna book. At least most of them, he's there. And when Krishna leaves Dwarka, so that's one form of Balaram. That's like the original Balaram. Then when Krishna leaves Vrindavan and goes to Dwarka and Hastinapur and Mathura and those places, then Krishna, he takes a slightly different form. He becomes Vasudeva Krishna. And Balaram also takes a slightly different form, which is called Mula Sankarshan. So then the mood of those is slightly different. Then from this Mula Sankarshan, then Lord Balaram expands into Maha Sankarshan. And Maha Sankarshan, he's the source of all the different Vaikuntha planets and all the Vishnus on them. So yeah, Lord Balaram is pretty amazing because not only does he expand into personalities or other further incarnations, but he expands into things. He is the Vaikuntha planets. And he expands as the holy Dham. Like when Krishna wants to come and perform his pastimes on this planet, then the Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan is replicated into Vrindavan. So that Vrindavan, the replication, is actually an expansion of Lord Balaram. And the Dham is Lord Balaram. And all the things that are used in Krishna's service are also Lord Balaram. Like we say, the Mridanga is Balaram, the kartals are Balaram, the pots that we used to cook for Krishna are Balaram. Like you could say that the carts and all the Krishna lunch paraphernalia, the truck, it's all Lord Balaram. The tables that you're sitting at, this microphone, it's all Lord Balaram. That's why you have to be very careful with how we deal with all the deity paraphernalia and all the temple paraphernalia and maintain the temple property and vehicles and everything, because that's Lord Balaram. That's all service to the Lord.
The yard work.
The yard work, yeah. That's like
The mulch.
doing Balaram's hair and decorating his body. Flower garland. So yeah. And so he becomes all those innumerable, countless Vaikuntha planets and all the Vishnus on them. And then he further expands himself into Mahavishnu. And then Mahavishnu is the Vishnu form that's responsible for the creation of the whole material universe, cosmic manifestation. He lies down on Anantashesh, which is also Lord Balaram. And then all these universes come out of every pore of his body. And then that Mahavishnu, who's sometimes called Karanadakshaya Vishnu, the cause of the creation. Then he further expands into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and he enters into each one of those universes that just emanated from his body, which are also him. And then he lies down on another Anantashesh, isn't it? Another Shesh, in this time in the Garbhodak ocean. And then Lord Brahma grows from a lotus petal, and then Lord Brahma engineers the universe. And then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he further expands to become Kshirodakshaya Vishnu and enters into every single atom of the creation and into the heart of all the living entities as the super soul. So these are all manifestations of Balaram. Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, the super soul is Lord Balaram. In every single atom is Lord Balaram, who's also Nityananda. We're talking about Nityananda. And not only that, but then he further expands and he takes this form of Anantashesh, and another form of Anantashesh exists at the bottom of the universe. So if you look at the structure of the universe in the fifth canto, there's all the different 14 planetary systems. And then at the bottom of it, there's Anantashesh Anantashesh is like a snake, many-hooded snake. And the universes are resting on one of his hoods. And that's so insignificant. The whole universe is so insignificant. To him, it's like a mustard seed on your head. You don't even notice. He doesn't even notice it. Like, whatever. He doesn't even feel it. The weight of the whole material universe. And in the meantime, with his thousands of mouths from those thousands of hoods, he's constantly chanting the glories of the Lord and the holy names of the Lord. So, but even he can't get to the end of describing the pastimes of the Lord. constantly through the whole time that the universe is existing, he's chanting and he can't get to the end of it. So we're not going to get to the end of the glories of Lord Balaram. Me and with my one mouth, what can I do? So we'll just get a little taste for it, hopefully. So that's who Lord Nityananda is, and it's very important to understand who Lord Nityananda really is, because afterwards when we see his pastimes, it's like so funny. Many people have a hard time accepting Lord Nityananda because he does some pretty wild stuff. And it's like, okay, we can kind of get it that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of God, but this Nityananda, I'm not so sure about that. Pretty out there. That's a part of his charm, that's like that's how he expresses his Ananda. And there's also a reason for that, because because another incarnation of Balaram is Lakshman, when he comes in the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. So in the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra, he comes as the younger brother. And as a younger brother, he gets totally frustrated. Because, the etiquette, at least like in India, it's still like this nowadays, is that a lot of honor is given to the eldest brother. So the younger brothers, they all follow him, they obey him, and they accept him almost like a representation of the father. So, when Lord Ram was sent into exile, then Lakshman was like, you don't have to go. Bharat doesn't even want to be the king. It's okay, And Ram was like, no, my father's ordered. I must go. And then Sita wanted to come. So then he was like, no, you definitely can't take Sita. That's going to be trouble. Taking a woman like Sita, who's a princess, to the forest in exile, it's going to be trouble. And then Ram was like, no, Sita's coming, like that. So, and then later, when the golden deer came along, like concept of the Ramayana, the golden deer was just to tempt Sita, just to tempt Ram away from Sita so that Ravan could abduct her. And then Lakshman could immediately see, like, this is not a good thing. Like, no, you can't leave Sita just for this golden deer. It's very dangerous here. We've already had incidents. But Ram's like, no, I must go and get it. She wants it. How can I, leave her disappointed? So in so many cases like this, Lakshman's just frustrated, and then he's thinking, next time I'm coming as the older brother. Then he's going to obey me. Then we'll have a little bit of there won't be so many problems in our lives. So then the next birth is Krishna and Balaram. That's the next incarnation. So then Balaram comes as Balaram, the older brother, which is like his constitutional position. But even then, he's totally frustrated because Krishna's having fun. He does whatever he wants. So, even though Balaram advised Krishna, I don't think it's a good idea to get involved with this battle of Kurukshetra. And Krishna's like, no, I have to. My pure devotees involved. I have to be there by his side. I have to support him. And Balaram's like, all right, I'm out of here. And then, Balaram didn't approve of what the punishment that Krishna gave to Rukmini, and he kind of gave him this haircut. He said, how can you do that to your brother-in-law on your wedding day? And then also Balaram didn't approve of Krishna's getting the whole scheme by which Arjuna, married the Subhadra. So, but Krishna knew that Balaram wasn't going to agree, and he made a whole scheme to deceive Balaram. So that it can happen. So then Balaram was just like, oh my God, as the younger brother, forget it. As the older brother, forget it. So in my next incarnation, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to be as wild and as out of control as he is. Whatever I believe. So then as Nityananda, he came in this form of an avadut. Avadut means a person who doesn't bother about any rules and regulations. They just act as to the inspiration of their, ecstasy. And so Nityananda is in that mood. It's just a really sweet mood. So when Lord Chaitanya comes, he's Krishna, but he comes in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And so when Lord Nityananda, although Lord Nityananda, he's an avaduta, but still his heart is just all about serving Krishna. So when Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya, then Balaram comes as Nityananda to serve Lord Chaitanya in Lord Chaitanya's particular mood. And in this case, Lord Chaitanya's mood is the mood of Radharani.
Hmm.
And Lord Chaitanya, there are two aspects to that mood. There's an external aspect and an internal aspect. So the external aspect is to, well, first we say that the internal aspect is to relish love for Krishna. To relish pure love for Krishna, which Radharani knows the best. She's the best lover of Krishna. She's the most exalted, intense lover of Krishna. And so Lord Nityananda serves Lord Chaitanya by enhancing his ecstatic love for Krishna through his own ecstatic love for Krishna. So Lord Nityananda is always just freely exhibiting, emotional states of pure love for Krishna. And when Lord Chaitanya sees him in those states, then he also, gets into ecstasy. And so Lord Nityananda is always nourishing and supporting and enhancing this loving mood of devotion to Krishna. And all the, emotions that go along with it. And then the external aspect of Lord Chaitanya's mood of being in the mood of Radharani is compassion. Right? Then when we explain that Hare Krishna mantra, we say that Hare, which is calling out to Radharani, it's the compassionate energy of the Lord. So Radharani is so compassionate. She wants to bring everyone to Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya also, his external mission is to bring everyone to Krishna, to just give love of Krishna freely to all the conditioned souls in the material world. Broke open the storehouse of love of God and just distribute the contents without considering who's qualified and who's not qualified. So then Lord Nityananda, he totally helps Lord Chaitanya in that mood, and even more so. He reaches out even more to the most unqualified people that even though Lord Chaitanya doesn't consider who's unqualified and who's qualified, but he has some limitations, he has some boundaries. But Lord Nityananda basically has no boundaries. He just accepts everyone. He'll reach out to anybody to bring them to Krishna in order to, one, for them to be devotees, and two, to glorify his Lord Chaitanya. So, and the prime example of that is the pastime of Jagai and Madai. So most of you know this pastime already, and it's often narrated in relation to Lord Nityananda because it really shows the character of Lord Nityananda. Because these two people, Jagai and Madai, although they were born in Brahmin families, but they were sinful from like day one practically. They were just like bad apples, rotten to the core. And they rejected their culture, they rejected their family, and they just they did every single sinful activity that you could possibly think of, stealing, raping, murdering, pillaging, burning down houses, intoxication, gambling, meat eating, the works. They just did everything wrong and everything harmful to others that they possibly could. And everybody was afraid of them, but nobody could control them because everyone, even the police were afraid of them, and people wouldn't go near them. People who would go near them, unwittingly, would get beaten up, robbed, killed, women would get raped, children, little girls would get raped, old men, blind men would get beaten up and thrown in ditches, and they would just burn people's houses down for fun. It was like that. It was just super extreme. These guys were really bad and always just intoxicated and didn't care. So then Lord Chaitanya had sent Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur out preaching. And they were out doing Harinam and going door to door and trying to get everyone to chant. And then they came across these two guys that were just lying there, just drunk and just chewing on, a chicken leg or something, and swearing and spitting and cursing people. And then Lord Nityananda was like, hey, those guys, they're the perfect objects of mercy. If we can deliver them, then everybody's going to see that the mercy of Lord Chaitanya has no bounds, that Lord Chaitanya can deliver anybody who's so powerful. And so, their scheme was to go there and have a little discussion. They thought, well, let's make a strategy. So they didn't go there directly, but they went and they were having a conversation like, hey, do you know about the holy names of Krishna? He was like, yeah, I've heard that by chanting the holy names of Krishna, you can get the greatest joy in life and be free from all, bad karma. And Nityananda was like, yes, I think it's true, And so like this, they're like going through the names of Krishna in the hopes that like Jagai and Madhai will overhear them and take some interest in the conversation, which they did, but it was like a negative. It's like, what are you talking about? Get out of here! We don't want to hear that stuff. And then they started chasing them. So then they were chasing Lord Nityananda. Haridas Thakur was afraid. Nityananda was just laughing his head. So fun, because another thing about Lord Nityananda, he was always in the mood of a cowherd boy, because he was Balaram. Then he had this very playful, like boyish nature. So just like the cowherd boys, they like run and chase each other, and they play tag and all that. So Lord Nityananda was just enjoying being chased, and also he was laughing because he was like, these guys are so drunk and so fat. So they outran them, and they went to the house of Srivas Thakur, and they just closed the door, and then Jagai Madhai was like, and then they just like went back to their steamer. Then, so they went back to Lord Chaitanya that day, and then Lord Chaitanya would send them out, and every day he wanted to hear the results. Just like every day for the pleasure of Borni Thai, we say how many books were distributed, how many plates of prasad were distributed. Because Lord Chaitanya wants to hear these things. He said, go out and report to me how many people chanted the holy name. Who did you meet? Which nice people got really interested? And like that. And he likes to hear the Sankirtan reports. So Lord Chaitanya went back, and they were having some Krishna Katha there, Lord Chaitanya and his associates. But as soon as Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur walked in the door, Lord Chaitanya's like, oh, they've come back. How did it go today? So then Lord Nityananda said, first Lord Haridas Thakur said, oh my God, today we nearly died. You know, this guy is going to get us killed. Approach these two drunkards, these really dangerous people. And then Lord Chaitanya said, oh, what's to be expected? He's also a drunkard. And the drunkards, of course, they're going to attract each other. And that way, you would always tease them into another. And then Haridas Thakur was like, no, seriously, these guys were rough. You know, this was bad. And then Nityananda's like, no, they're the perfect candidates for your love. Today they couldn't get the mercy. Tomorrow they're going to get the mercy. And the Haridas is like, oh my God, do I have to go out with him again? And then Lord Chaitanya said, don't worry, because Nityananda desires their deliverance, they're already delivered. Like that, just by his desire. Lord Chaitanya had that faith. So then they went again. Yeah, and then, so they went there, they approached them, and then Madhai was like, oh, you came back again? Who are you anyway? And how do you have the nerve to approach us the second time after what we showed you yesterday? And then Nityananda said, I'm an Avadhuta. And then Madhai said, you're a what? Get out of here. And then he picked up a piece of a broken clay pot that had their liquor in it, and he like threw it at Lord Nityananda and cut his head. So Lord Nityananda was bleeding. He was bleeding a lot. It's described that like the blood was going all down. His body was covered in blood. And some other associates of Lord Chaitanya were around, and they went running back to Lord Chaitanya. They told him what had happened, and Lord Chaitanya came there like with Sudarshan chakra in his hand. Although he came, in this mood of compassion and mercy, but this was too much. This was like crossed the line, And he was ready to kill Jagai and Madhai. And Lord Nityananda, and then, before that, first Madhai, he threw that and he cut him. And then he was about to do it again. He was about to get another piece or hit him again. And then Jagai said, no, don't do it. You can't, this is not good. He's, not a bad person. And you've already hurt him, you should stop. And so, Lord Nityananda appreciated that Jagai, although he was, also just as sinful, he'd done as many sinful things as Madhai, but somehow he had this sense that, no, don't hurt this personality any further. So when Lord Chaitanya was getting ready to kill both of them, he was just about to behead both of them in a second, then Nityananda said, don't do it. He was grabbing hold of him, saying, trying to restrain him, don't kill him. Because Jagai was pleading on my behalf to get Madhai to not harm me. And then Lord Chaitanya immediately softened up towards Jagai. He said, okay, this Jagai, because he has served my devotee, he's protected my devotee, who's dear to me than my life and soul, then I'm going to give him all protection. I'm going to give him love of God. And he just embraced Jagai. And as soon as he embraced Jagai, then Jagai was overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna. And he started like dancing and crying and laughing and all these symptoms of pure love for Krishna. In the meantime, Madai's like, shaking in his boots. And he's like, what about me? And then he's like, look at all the sins that I did. Because Madai, he like understood that actually this is the Supreme Personality of God and this is not like an ordinary person. So then he got scared because he was thinking, oh, well, I'm going to get punished now. I'm a dead man, basically. So he's like, well, how are you so merciful to him? What about me? And then when he said that, Lord Chaitanya, he's like, yeah, what about you? And he picked up the Sudarshan. You're finished, because you, didn't do what he did. Then Madai started begging for mercy, and Lord Chaitanya said, forget it. I'm not being merciful to you. If you want to apologize to someone, you owe the apology to Lord Nityananda, and if he forgives you, then I'll be okay with you. So then he went to Lord Nityananda and he apologized. And Lord Nityananda immediately accepted the apology. So I was thinking this is really sweet on the one hand, because we see how Nityananda, he didn't want anyone to get punished, and he was really happy that Jagai got love of God. He just wants everyone to be a devotee and get love of God. And so, as preachers, we are meant to represent this line of mercy that's coming from Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And we should have this desire to just want everyone to be a devotee and be willing to tolerate any offense, even like a personal insult or injury, from people who are totally ignorant. And to be ready to forgive a person if they may say something or do something in ignorance, like Lord Nityananda did. That as soon as Madai approached him and asked for forgiveness, then immediately he was like, of course. It was like without a hesitation. I was like, immediately, of course I forgive you, because if I don't forgive you, you don't have any chance. How are you going to be a devotee? Lord Chaitanya just said that if I don't forgive you, you are not going to get his mercy. So then it's similar, like if people offend us, then Vaishnava aparad is very damaging to the person's spiritual life, and Lord Chaitanya, Krishna withholds the mercy from a person who offends devotees. So we're trying to be devotees. If someone offends us, we should think, oh my God, the person offended me. Now they're going to be deprived of Krishna's full mercy. So I want that person to get the mercy. I want them to be a devotee. I want them to be a pure devotee and be happy and go back to Godhead. And so I really want to forgive the person. And just like Lord Nityananda, just forgive the person. We don't have to even wait for an apology. What to speak of when somebody does come and apologize for something that they did wrong in ignorance and sincerely apologize. We should definitely immediately forgive them and give them all the blessings and clear their way so that they can approach Lord Chaitanya and go back to Godhead. So this is following in the footsteps of Lord Nityananda and everybody who came after him, the Goswamis and our Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada. He was so much in that mood of just tolerating all kinds of nonsense that people did out of ignorance, like crazy stuff, and just going on serving that person and trying to help them and forgiving them, and forgiving them again. So this is a very important lesson that we can learn from this pastime. And it said that Lord Chaitanya is like the sun, that he gives illumination, and he gives warmth, and he gives life to the universe. And Nityananda is like the moon. And these two brothers, the sun and have risen simultaneously on the horizon of Yodadesh, of West Bengal, like the sun and the moon, in order to dissipate the darkness of ignorance. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Sahodito, Gaudadaya, Pushpavantav, Chitra, Shando, Sahodito. So then, Chitra, Shando, Tamonudo. To destroy ignorance. So they've simultaneously risen like the sun and the moon in order to dissipate the ignorance of this age of Kali and in order to bestow the most sublime transcendental benediction of love of God. So the sun sometimes is a little, the sun is wonderful. We couldn't live without the sun. We totally depend on the sun for everything, life in the universe. But at the same time, sometimes the sun is a little difficult to bear, right? Sometimes the sun gets a little intense. The heat of the sun, or even to look at the sun, you can't stay looking at the sun all day. But the moon The moon you can just look at, ad infinitum. You can just gaze at the moon for hours. And the moon is so soothing. After the heat of the day, in the summertime here in Florida, when the moon rises, it's like, wow, look at the moon. And it's like all the stress of the day just, vanishes. And you feel so just like sublime, so calm and soothed. And the moon is like solace after a hard day's work in the scorching sun. So Lord Nityananda, he's like the moon. He's like soothing. His role for us is just to soothe, just to comfort us in devotional service. And we see this happening, that like after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, then all the residents of Navadvip, because he went to Puri and he stayed there. And Lord Nityananda, one of his main roles was to go to Navadvip and to just soothe the residents of Navadvip, to give solace to Sachi, who is missing, Mother Sachi, who is missing her son Lord Chaitanya so much, and to appease all the other residents of Navadvip. They were feeling separation from Lord Chaitanya. When they would see Lord Nityananda there, they would become alive again. They would become so happy. Mother Sachi, when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, she stopped eating. She didn't eat for 12 days. And then Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, he was thinking, oh my God, the residents of Navadvip, they're suffering too much. Nityananda would go there and help them. And he went straight to Sachi Mata. He said, Sachi Mata, what are you doing? You're not cooking for your deities. You need to take care of the deities. And then he said, you should cook. So then he convinced her to cook for the deities. He really wanted her to eat. He wanted her to get back into her routine of, to be herself again. And so she cooked for the deities, and then she served all the devotees, and she was so happy. And then he's like, and now you eat. And then she accepted prasadam. And then after that, she was like, okay, my life can go on. And he said, don't worry, because whenever you cook, whenever you offer to the deities, then Lord Chaitanya is personally going to come and eat your offering. And Lord Chaitanya showed that. He actually showed that to her, that sometimes she would cook and the food would be gone, and then she would cook again. She would think she was going crazy. But actually Lord Chaitanya is coming. He was eating that personally, and then she saw in a vision, she saw that Lord Chaitanya was coming eating the food, and he said, my dear mother, how could I ever leave you? I'm always going to serve you. I'm always here to eat whatever you cook. Like that. So, yeah, Nityananda gave a lot of solace to the rest. But even though Nityananda had, let's say, so Nityananda is not just a moon. He's a million, he's more soothing than millions of moons. Like that song, Nitai Pada Kamala, Koti Chandra Shishikala. Lord Nityananda, the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are more soothing than millions and millions of moons. So what to speak of what we feel from that one moon in the sky? That's just a little chunk, The real moon is Lord Nityananda. he's more soothing, so whenever we're having difficulty in spiritual life, whenever we're struggling, the modes are getting intense, or the service is heavy, or our desires, our anarthas are bothering us, or we're having challenges in our relationships, we just need to take shelter of the two lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, and everything's going to be okay. By Lord Nityananda's mercy, everything is just going to be all right. And then we'll feel revived, just like Sachi, okay, I can breathe again, I can eat again, my life came back to me. My spiritual life, everything is actually very positive. So like that, Lord Nityananda. But even Lord Nityananda has his limitations in a sense. Because there's this one pastime where Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya were out walking, and this sannyasi, so-called sannyasi, came up to them. And he said, oh, you two, you're so saintly, so wonderful. I want to bless you. And then they're like, okay, fine. He says, I bless you that you will have all material happiness, all material opulence, all material comforts for the rest of your life. And then Lord Chaitanya was like, dude, you just cursed us. He's like, that was a curse, that wasn't a blessing. We don't want that stuff. We're trying to get away from that. And then, so then the sannyasi was confused. He was like, what? I just gave you the best of blessings. And Nityananda took him aside. He's like, look, this Lord Chaitanya, only I can understand his mind. It's okay. We'll accept your blessings, and we like you. He said, oh, very good. Then you should come to my house. So then Nityananda was like, yes, we're going to your house. And he said, Lord Chaitanya, we're going to his house. So he says, it's like, fine. Nityananda says, we're going to his house, we're going to his house. So they went, and they sit down, he said, I want to give you some. Lord Nityananda said, you come, I'll give you some fruits. He said, all right, fruits we can take. So then he went there, and they sit down, and he called his wife. The sannyasi had a wife. He was a bogus sannyasi. Already, his idea of a good, success in life is material opulence, money, comforts, pleasures. So he says, he calls his wife, bring the fruits. These great souls have come bring them some fruits. So they bring the fruits, they're eating the fruits, and they're just trying to discuss some Krishna Katha with this, banana sannyasi. And then he says, the sannyasi says, all right, my dear wife, now bring me Ananda. and then the wife's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. They're guests, they don't know us very well. No, bring me Ananda. And then Lord Chaitanya, Gauri-Tai looked at her like, the Ananda? And then she's like, okay, I'm bringing the Ananda. And then she brings out these bottles of wine. And then they say, this is your Ananda? He says, this is the Ananda. Experience Ananda. And then they're like, we're not taking your Ananda. And then they got up and they just left the place. So then what we can learn from this is that although Lord Nityananda is very accepting, very accommodating, he reaches out to everyone. And so he took, Lord Chaitanya, at first he kind of like, he rejected the blessing that this sannyasi gave because it wasn't something that he was interested in. But Lord Nityananda, he, although not taking the blessing, but he accepted the intention. So sometimes a person who's totally in the mode of ignorance, they might want to offer us or approach us in a certain way, which in their minds is a nice way to talk, a nice thing to offer, or a nice thing to do. But in our minds as devotees, we're like, this guy is so like in Maya, But then, we're not interested in what he has to offer. But in some senses, we can accept, on the basis that they're trying to be friendly. We can accept the mood of the offering and try to reciprocate with giving them in return whatever we can offer them in terms of prasadam, the holy name, Prabhupada's books, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and just the lifestyle, show some saintly qualities to try to change the person's heart. But then we can adjust also. We can adjust to some extent to, help people connect with us. Or we can change our clothes, we can change our style of music, we can change a few things, but we can never change the principles. So we saw that Nityananda, he accepted the mood, he wanted to reciprocate, he wanted to bless this person, give them the benefits of his association. But when it came to, breaking the principles, it's like, no, that's it. That's beyond the line. So then they left. So that's very instructive for us as preachers to know how much we can bend, but that there's even a point there that we can't allow ourselves to be broken by association with people who are just beyond helping, We can try to help them as far as they can be helped, but sometimes it comes to a point where they're just like, all right, I'm not interested, and we've done what we could. So like that. So another way that Lord Nityananda serves Krishna, we talked about how there's so many ways, the creation and the super soul and the Ananta Shesh opening up the universe and personally serving him in his pastimes as Krishna and his pastimes as Lord Chaitanya, increases in his ecstasy, giving mercy to the fallen conditioned souls. And also part of that, giving mercy to the fallen conditioned souls, a very important role that Nityananda plays is Adi Guru. That he is the original guru. And Nityananda and Balaram, they are Adi Guru. And so, actually, Prabhupada would say also that the guru is one. It appears that there are many gurus. Like in ISKCON, we have many, many gurus. But actually, there's only one guru, and that is Lord Nityananda Balaram. He's the original guru. And all the other gurus are empowered and empowered by Balaram, by Nityananda. They're reflections of the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And so just like the moon is in the sky, and then there may be many containers with liquids, a pot of water, or a lake, or a vat of oil, or something like that. That when the full moon is shining there, then they reflect the moon in different ways, right? Like a little cup of water is going to reflect it in one way, a lake is going to reflect it another way, a pot of oil or some different substance is going to reflect it another way. So different gurus have different moods, they look different, they have different activities, personalities, but they're all reflecting the mercy of Lord Nityananda. So, yeah, in that sense, we shouldn't see that this is my guru, this is not my guru, or I like this guru, I don't like that guru. All the gurus are representatives of Lord Nityananda, and the mercy that's delivered to the gurus is the same. It's the same. It just looks different, but it's actually the same thing. So that's the unity that we have in ISKCON, is that we're all of our gurus are reflecting the mercy of Lord Nityananda, which is coming down through the succession through Srila Prabhupada, who is the guru of everyone. So that's a very important point. And another way that Lord Nityananda's mood was different from Lord Balaram is that Lord Balaram would often get angry. Right? He would get angry, like in the case where Shupurnaka came when he was in the form of Lakshman. So she came and she was wanting to, tempt Lord Ram. And then when she saw that Sita was his wife and that Lord Ram wasn't into having another wife, then Shupurnaka pushed Sita away. And then Lakshman got really angry and he cut off the nose of Shupurnaka. And then in many pastimes in Vrindavan and those pastimes during Krishna Lila, Balaram got really angry, right? Like with Rama Harshana Sutta, when he just didn't stand up to welcome him, he took a blade of grass and he killed him. And then when Balaram wanted to play in the Yamuna, he was in the mood for having some fun with Yamuna, and he said, Yamuna, come here, I want to swim there, I want to have a swim. Yamuna's like, what? You've been drinking too much honey garuni beverage, and I'm going to stay where I am. He's like, you come here, and then he got his plow and he was going to split the Yamuna into so many different, branches. And she's like, okay, yeah, I'm coming. and then what's another one? Rukmi. When Rukmi was cheating at chess, this is funny because Lord Balaram got angry. I mean, he didn't like it when Krishna gave him a weird haircut. Oops. But when Rukmi cheated at chess and insulted Lord Balaram, Balaram just got his plow and killed Rukmi in one blow. And it was at Rukmi, his daughter's wedding. Yeah, so it was it was the party. It was at the wedding reception. Everybody's having a good time and playing. Let's play chess. And, all right, yeah.
Also, the core was when he went there to get Anirudh said, and then they didn't want to. They were saying a lot of things about Krishna, and he was about to drag Hastinapur.
Oh yeah. He got his plow and he was actually starting to drag the whole city. He was going to drag it into the sea and just drown everybody. It was a major yeah. So, Lord Lord Nityananda, like we were saying, he's unthroated. He doesn't get angry, even if somebody hurts him, even if somebody offends him, because he's so blissful. He doesn't take offenses. And that's why so many people were able to become devotees after the appearance of Gaur Nitai. Because before that, Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, so Krishna was there, Krishna's names were in circulation, Krishna's pastimes were there, they were known to people, in India. People knew Krishna's pastimes. But they weren't becoming devotees of Krishna because they were committing too many offenses. And because Krishna takes offenses very seriously. And if someone does some sinful activity, then Krishna's like, forget it, But when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda came, then even sinful people, even, offenders, they gave mercy to. And so many people were able to become devotees. If it wasn't for the mercy of Lord Nityananda, none of us would be able to be devotees, because we've all done so much nonsense. But Lord Nityananda is so kind that whatever we've done, he just totally forgets it. It's just null and void. Whatever you've done before the point of becoming devotee, it's just done. Don't tell me about it. I don't need to know. It's irrelevant. So in the same way, we shouldn't judge, other devotees by what they did before they became a devotee. We shouldn't even consider it at all. It means absolutely nothing. Now the person is a Vaishnava. It's a totally different thing. Different life. New life. And even chanting the name of Nityananda, even calling out, Nityananda!
Nityananda!
When it's free from unlimited sins, from unlimited lifetimes. So then what is the question of having done anything wrong? Everybody is sinless just from saying,
Nityananda!
So that's why, Nityananda. So Lord Nityananda was born in 1474, which is 12 years before Lord Chaitanya. He's older than Lord Chaitanya, which is he's the older brother. He was born in Ekachakra. And from his very childhood, he was totally absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, enacting the pastimes of Krishna and Lord Ramachandra. And the people of the village, they would be amazed. How does this little boy know all the details of his pastime? How is he getting so into it? Because he would teach all of his friends, you have to say this, and you have to do this, and you have to go there, and you have to act like this, and you have to show this emotion. And he would be the director of all these pastimes. And they would say, how do you even know all these things? You haven't read the scriptures. Nobody told you these things. He said, these are my pastimes. So in that way, he won the hearts of all the residents of Ekachakra. And his mother and father were so affectionate toward him. He was just the life and soul of everybody. And then one day the sannyasi came. And so the householders would receive sannyasis. And it was the duty of a householder to give charity to sannyasis. So at the end of taking care of the servant, the sannyasi was staying in their home for some days. And the sannyasi was observing Nityananda, thinking, this is such a sweet boy, such a nice child. He was only 12 years old at that time. And then, so then before leaving, Daganamishra said, is there anything that we can do for you? One last request. Is there anything that, service that we can do? And then the sannyasi said, yes, actually there is this one thing. He said, anything, ask anything you want. And then he said, can this boy come and be my servant on pilgrimage? I need a servant. I'm traveling alone now. And then Hadai Pandit, Nityananda's father, he was just oh my God. He was anything but that. He's why did you have to ask for that thing? And then, but then he consulted with his wife and he's like, what can we do? This is our dharma. This is our duty. We made a promise. It was like that in those days. Somebody it was like they would give their own son, their most beloved thing in their whole life. They would give because they promised it. That's how true to the word a Brahmin would be. So they gave Lord Nityananda. And the sannyasi wandered off, and Nityananda wandered off with him. And they were dying, literally in separation. They couldn't eat, they couldn't sleep, they couldn't think straight. They were hallucinating, seeing that Nityananda was coming back, and he wasn't coming back. And their bodies just turned black, and they just got pale and thin. And Hadai Pandit and his wife, Padmavati Devi, they left their bodies absorbed in thought of Nityananda after 3 months of his departure. And the whole village, not only them, but the whole village, everybody basically, they were so attached to Nityananda. When the sannyasi was going with Nityananda, the other villagers were like, don't take Nityananda, take my son instead. His son is born here. Our husband, take my son, take the women, take the daughters, take everyone. Lord Chaitanya was visiting that village, he went to Ekachakra. He saw there were 5 people in Ekachakra. And then he said, what's happening? There was one old man there. He said, what happened? He said, when Nityananda left, everybody just died. Nobody could live without Nityananda. They literally just lost their lives. And there's just a few of us left. And even us, we're just worshiping the deity of Nityananda here in the temple, and that's keeping us alive. And apart from that, we're just immersed in grief. So that. So Lord Nityananda traveled with that sannyasi for 20 years. He went all over India, he went to all the holy places, at one place Nityananda met a very amazing Vaishnava named Lakshmipati Tirtha, and he accepted initiation from him. Then later, he met another amazing Vaishnava, Madhavendra Puri, and there's a whole description in Chaitanya Bhagavatam of their ecstatic, meeting, how they were like crying and laughing and embracing each other for hours, and just like they couldn't leave each other's company and relishing Krishna Katha. And because, although both of them were disciples of Lakshmipati Tirtha, then, but because Madhavendra Puri was older, Nityananda considered Madhavendra Puri his guru, and he always treated him like that. And he would even say, and even in our list of the Guru Parampara and the Bhagavad Gita, it's like Lakshmipati, then Madhavendra Puri, then there's that group there with Ishvara Puri, Nityananda, Advaita. So Nityananda is apparently, he's designated, at least in the book, as a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, although he was initiated by Lakshmipati, but because he really felt that Madhavendra Puri, I mean, they connected so deeply because they both had this mood of like ecstatic love for Krishna. So, so then like that. And then, so then the pilgrimage ended in Vrindavan. And Nityananda, he said, okay, he knew that Lord Chaitanya had appeared because he knew that Lord Chaitanya had already appeared, and then he was doing all these pastimes, childhood pastimes, and you might call it scholarly pastimes, and defeating, other scholars' pastimes, and teachers' pastimes, and being puffed up, arrogant. And he was just like, I'm not interested in these pastimes. I'm going to wait until he starts the Sankirtan movement. When he starts spreading this thing of spreading the holy names in Kirtan and giving the mercy to everybody, then that's when I'm going. So he was just waiting. He was just killing time there and playing with cowherd boys and having fun in Vrindavan, being ecstatic in love for Krishna in Vrindavan. And then finally he understood, okay, now's the time that Chaitanya starts. So then he went to Navadvip and he hid there in the house of Nanda and Shari. Nobody could know it. But Lord Chaitanya knew. He had a dream, his personality, we have to find him. So he sent some disciples, nobody could find him. And he said, okay, I know where he is. And they went and they found him. He's sitting there in meditation. So Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda had many moods. Sometimes he was just laughing, sometimes crying, sometimes being crazy, and sometimes he was very sober, and sometimes he was meditative, and so he had many different moods. You never knew what his mood was going to be from one moment to the next. So he was absorbed in meditation, his eyes closed, and Lord Chaitanya saw him there, and Lord Chaitanya was standing in front of him, and all of a sudden Lord Nityananda opened his eyes, and when he saw Lord Chaitanya, oh my God, it was just indescribable, the ecstasy that he felt, that meeting, of these two eternal brothers meeting for the first time in this incarnation, and there they are, and it's Lord Nityananda immediately fainted. He just collapsed. Lights out. And then Lord Chaitanya was just standing there. He's like, okay guys, do kirtan. So they started doing some kirtan, and then Lord Nityananda came to again, and then he looked at and then Lord Chaitanya, and this time he just jumped up into the ceiling practically, and he started crying, and then he kept jumping, and each time he jumped, he wasn't landing on his feet, he was just crashing down on the floor, jumping and crashing, and the devotees were afraid that he was going to break every bone in his body, and they said, he's going to kill himself here, just jumping. And then Lord Chaitanya just embraced him, just held him. He held him in his embrace. And Lord Nityananda was so ecstatic, he was so overwhelmed, he was crying, tears were squirting out of his eyes like a syringe, and making everybody wet. And Lord Chaitanya was the same. The two of them were just spraying tears all over the place. And it's the floor of the house was flooded. And it was running out the door, and it was making a river that was going down the street. So it was just really inconceivable. An inconceivable emotional experience. And so then from then on there, it was Sankirtan, chanting, spreading love of God to everybody that they saw. And later when Lord Chaitanya decided to retire in Jagannath Puri, then he sent Lord Nityananda. And Lord Nityananda, he was always in this mood of cowherd boy, And he had his own associates too, who were cowherd boys. They were like the 12 Gopals. They were like all the cowherd boys, because when Lord Chaitanya Krishna, when he came with all the eternal associates. And because Lord Chaitanya was in the mood of Radha, most of his associates, intimate associates, were gopis. Although Nityananda was very much in the mood of Balaram. And so all his intimate associates were cowherd boys. So then, when Lord Chaitanya sent Nityananda to go back to preach in Navadvip, then he sent him with all of his gang, with all of his troop of cowboys, and they were just as wild, so nuts. So they went with the three Goshes to this Vasudeva Mukunda, and who was the other one? Vasudeva Mukunda Ghosh. Anyways, the three Goshes who were amazing singers, and so they were leading these. Govinda. They were leading these kirtans and playing these instruments. And when Lord Nityananda, they would pass through a village. So Lord Nityananda's kirtans were just ecstatic. Because Lord Nityananda was so absorbed, when they would chant, he would get so absorbed in love for Krishna that he would lose external consciousness. And he would just be totally in this mood of, cowherd boy and serving Krishna, and his friends would also get caught up in it. And they would be these crazy cowherd boys running around, sometimes roaring, sometimes chasing each other, sometimes shouting, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying. Sometimes, if they would see some cows, they would start rolling in the dust of ecstasy, thinking they're in Vrindavan, and they would go just drink milk from the cows directly, like calves sucking the milk from the and they would make a big commotion. It was tumultuous. When they arrived in the village, everybody was like, "What the hell?" And then they would get swept up in the kirtan. And that was whole families, whole villages are just getting swept up in the kirtan and going. That's what become big, because they would all just shoot. And then the old guy would come out and be like, "Where'd everybody go?" From village to village, sometimes the whole village, sometimes one family, sometimes few individuals. And they're like, "What happened to old Uncle Bippin?" And so in that way, they travel all over West Bengal, and they were making people into devotees. They were just inundating the whole place, the whole country was love of God. And they would get this cowherd boy. They all had their flute. They had their sticks. But even had this red stick. They would whirl it around and throw it in the air. They all had their turbans and flutes. And sometimes Lord Nityananda would get so absorbed in the cowherd boy mood, he would keep wanting to wear his turban, but it wasn't there because he would probably twirl it and flung it somewhere. So he'd take off his dhoti and hold it. Clothed only by the four directions. Sometimes his associates would do that too. They're just going to attract even more attention. And then he had this one associate. His associates were as wild as he was. And this one associate that was called Abhiram Gopal Thakur. So Abhiram Gopal Thakur, he was known, he had a whip. He would carry a whip. Because cowherd boys, sometimes they carry a stake to guard the cows, and sometimes a whip to control them or whatever. Gently, of course. He carried this whip, and his thing was that he would see somebody and he would whip them, and with that strike of the whip, they would get ecstatic love. So this one person came, and he was his wife, he came with his family. So I remember Gopal Thakur saw me, he cracked the whip on him, and he all of a sudden started dancing and laughing. Go, Ranga! Go! We need him!
It's called Jai Mangal.
Jai Mangal, they had a name. So yeah, and it's similar, like if you got hit with Nityananda's red stick, his stick was actually made out of iron. Fix them, and they just walk up to random strangers and be like, "Dang, Mom, I'm crazy." So yeah, that was alright. I talked a lot. I don't some space for questions, but I got a little carried away. Madhu.
Yes. It seems like what you said, you have to get Nityananda's mercy to get Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But wouldn't getting Lord Nityananda's mercy be enough? I mean, to be delivered, or like?
Yeah, in one sense, yeah, but if you get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, then you're going to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. That's like, that just kind of like, goes along package deal. Because Lord Nityananda is so dear to Lord Chaitanya that whoever Lord Nityananda accepts, then Lord Chaitanya is going to accept. Yeah. Just like, he's Adi Guru, so the same principle. Like, we take initiation, we take shelter of a spiritual master, and our acceptance of the spiritual master is basically equates with our being accepted by Krishna, being accepted by Gaura, being accepted by Krishna. Because the spiritual master is so dear to Krishna for doing that service and for just being, an amazing devotee, that Krishna becomes sold out to the person. So when that person says, Krishna, whatever this person's faults are, please accept them, make them your pure devotee, take them back to Godhead, get them out of this material suffering, and Krishna's like, all right, you got it.
I was thinking of how Lord Nityananda, he didn't start Sankirtan without the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. So he traveled all over India, he went on pilgrimage, he stayed in Vrindavan for so long. And even when he met Lord Chaitanya, he didn't start going around preaching without the blessings of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
And only when Lord Chaitanya instructed him to go preach, that's when he took up that and he went crazy with it. But it's an important point of how we can only have success in preaching if we have the blessings of Lord Chaitanya and also through Nityananda.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and that goes along with Nityananda's whole mood, right? That he's the servant. I'm just the servant. I'm the servant of Lord Chaitanya. So when Lord Chaitanya is ready to start, then I'm going to start. Then I'll serve him in his initiative. Basically, but on my own, I'm not going to, go and create my own movement, basically. I'm not going to go and start my own thing. All right, it is 9 o'clock on the dot.
Yeah.
I was thinking that if there was time, we could even sing. There's another really nice bhajan. We can sing later at some point. Very sweet. That says like the instructions that Lord Nityananda gave to people. Like when he would go door to door, what he would say to them. Like, this is what you do. His Lord Nityananda's preaching. So. Shri Nityananda Ram Ki Jai!